Hello, welcome to the course SJPHY2C02 Optics, Laser and Electronics. The contents of today's lecture is taken from Principles of Electronics by V.K. Mehta. We will continue to discuss topics from Module 4, Electronics. In the last class, we discussed about half-wave and full-wave rectifier circuits. In particular, we discussed about the center tap full-wave rectifier. So as I said, the center tap transformer is more expensive compared to a normal transformer, and also if you look at the secondary voltage, each of the diode will be able to utilize only half of the secondary voltage. That's why the output of a center tap rectifier is pretty small. So in order to overcome this, you can use a bridge rectifier. So this is the circuit diagram of a bridge rectifier. Instead of two diodes, you have four diodes, D1, D2, D3, D4, which are connected in a bridge fashion. And the AC supply is applied diagonal to the diagonally opposite ends of the bridge, so between this point and this point. And the load resistor RL is connected between the other two diagonal ends. So if you look here, point A is grounded, RL is connected to point B, and the other end of RL is grounded. So these two ground points are common. So this is as though RL is connected between A and B. Now what happens during the positive half cycle? So here the point P is positive as shown in this figure, and point Q is negative during the positive half cycle. And look at the diodes. For D1, the P side is connected to the positive terminal, so D1 is forward bias, and for D4, the N side is connected to the positive terminal, so D4 is reverse bias. And coming to D2 and D3, this point is a negative polarity. So for D2, the P side is connected to the negative terminal, so D2 is reverse bias, whereas for D3, the N side is connected to the negative terminal, so D3 is forward bias. So D1 and D3 are forward biased, so they conduct electricity, whereas D2 and D4 are reverse biased, so they do not conduct electricity. And look at the current flow. So we know that the charge carriers are usually electrons here, and the current flow by default it is taken in the opposite direction of electron, because by convention it is taken that the current flow happens due to positive charge carriers. Okay. So electrons flow from a negative terminal to the positive terminal, whereas current flows from positive terminal to the negative terminal. So current starts from the positive terminal, D1 is conducting, so it will pass through D1, and since D2 and D4 are reverse bias, they do not conduct, so we don't have to bother about them, and it will come through point A to the ground. And as I said, these two ground points are common, so the current will emerge from this point. It will pass through RL, it will pass through D3 because D3 is forward bias. Finally, it will come to the negative terminal, so the circuit is complete. So you can see in this circuit, D1 and D3 are connected in series through RL. So consequently, current flows from point A to point B through RL. What happens during the negative half cycle? So here the P side is a negative and Q side is positive. Once again, look at the diodes. For D1, P is connected to the negative terminal, so this is reverse bias. For D4, the N side is connected to the negative terminal, so D4 is forward bias. Here, this point is now positively charged. For D2, P side is connected to the positive terminal, so this is forward bias. For D3, the N side is connected to the positive terminal, so D3 is reverse bias. So D1 and D3 are reverse biased, they do not conduct, and D2 and D4 are forward bias and they conduct. And look at the current flow. So current starts from the positive terminal Q and ends at negative terminal P. Okay, so it will start flowing from this point. Since D1 and D4 are reverse bias, we don't have to consider them in this circuit. So it will go through D2 and reach through point A. It reaches the ground. This ground point is same as this point, so current will emerge from here. It will flow through RL through D4 and finally it ends in the negative terminal P. So once again, the current flow as though the two diodes D2 and D4 are connected in series, and if you look at the direction, it is same as that of the positive half cycle. Current flows from point A to point B through RL. Therefore, during both half cycles, current flows through RL along the same direction. Thus, you obtain a DC voltage. And if you look at the waveform, it is same as that of a center tap full wave bridge rectifier. So both half cycles are utilized. The only difference is that in the case of center tap circuit, each of the output pulse is due to a single diode, whereas here each output pulse is due to two diodes. So positive half cycle D1 and D3 contributes, and negative half cycles D2 and D4 contribute. Since you have contributions from two diodes, the output is going to be higher than that of a center tap transformer, center tap rectifier. And what about the peak inverse voltage? As we defined in the previous class, peak inverse voltage is the maximum voltage that drops across a diode when it is reverse bias. And what's the relevance of it? You know that typically during reverse bias, there is no current through the diode. Actually, there is some bit of current due to thermally generated electron hole pairs, but it's very weak. It's typically of the order of nanoamperes or microamperes. So it's as good as there is no current flowing through the diode. But if you exceed the reverse bias beyond a particular limit, in this case it is the peak inverse voltage. So if you provide voltage higher than peak inverse voltage, then the breakdown happens due to avalanche effect. There is a huge current setup due to minority carriers, and this is not good for the diode. Eventually the diode will burn. So whenever you use a diode rectifier circuit, you need to make sure that the operating voltage is always below the peak inverse voltage. So this is the relevance of PIV, especially while designing circuit breakers. PIV is an important consideration. Now what is PIV in this case? So as I said, during the positive half cycle, D1 and D3 are forward biased and D2 and D4 are reverse biased. And look at the bridge here. If you consider the diodes to be ideal means the internal resistance is 0. So when D1 and D3 are forward biased, they conduct electricity perfectly. So they act as though it's simply a copper wire which perfectly conduct electricity or smoothly conduct electricity. So instead of two diodes, you can assume that you have a simple wire connecting these 2 points. Okay, so you replace D1 and D3 with two wires. So this is the equivalent circuit diagram. So if you look at D2 and D4 now, these two are connected parallelly across the points P and Q, or across the secondary winding of the transformer. So you can redraw the same circuit as D2, D4 connected in parallel to the secondary winding of the transformer. And as you know, in the case of parallel connection, the voltage is same. And if you take the voltage, the secondary voltage of the transformer as Vm, where M stands for maximum, the maximum or the peak voltage. So if the secondary voltage is Vm, the same Vm is going to drop across D2 when it is reverse biased, and the same Vm is going to drop across D4 also when it is reverse biased. So the peak inverse voltage is Vm here. Now, what are the advantages of a bridge rectifier over a center tap rectifier? As I said, since there is no need of a center tap transformer, this is more cost effective because a center tap transformer is more expensive compared to a normal transformer. And the output is twice that of a center tap circuit, because in center tap each diode is going to use only half of the secondary voltage, but here the entire secondary voltage is utilized for the output generation. But there are a couple of disadvantages. First one, in the case of center tap circuit, there are only 2 diodes, but here you need 4 diodes. Okay. So you need to spend more money on your diodes. The second one, during each half cycle, 2 diodes which conduct are in series, right? So here D2 and D4 are in series through RL. In the previous case, D1 and D3 are in series through R. So this is a series connection. So you know that in the case of a series circuit, voltage drop happens across each of the resistors, right? So voltage drop due to the diode's internal resistance is twice as that of a center tap circuit, because in center tap circuit during each half cycle you have only 1 diode operating, right? So here voltage drop is almost double. Typically this voltage drop is very small, so if you are dealing with very strong signal, this is not going to be a problem. But if your input voltage is very small, this drop is going to be significant. So these are the 2 minor disadvantages of a bridge rectifier, but compared to the advantages, this is very minimal. So for most of the practical purposes, people use a bridge rectifier over a center tap rectifier. And what about the frequencies? Okay. So in the case of a half-wave rectifier, we have seen that the output frequency is same as that of the input frequency. Now, in the case of a full wave rectifier, what happens to the frequency? So we know that after one complete cycle, the waveform is going to repeat itself, right? So in the case of the input signal, so you have one complete cycle from 0 to 360 degree. After that, this waveform is going to repeat. Okay. So 0 to 360 is the time duration. Now if you look at the output side, you can see that from 0 to 180 degree you have one complete cycle. After that, the waveform is going to repeat itself, right? So the time period is shorter here. So for one complete cycle of the input, you have 2 complete cycles at the output, which means the output frequency is twice of the input frequency. For example, if input frequency is 1 Hertz, the output frequency is going to be 2 Hertz. 1 Hertz means in 1 second you have 1 wave. 2 Hertz means in 1 second you have 2 waves. So F out, output frequency is 2 into F in, where F in is the input frequency. Now what about efficiency? So this is one of the major advantages of a full wave rectifier over a half wave rectifier. So as before, let's say V equal to Vm sin theta is the AC input voltage that appears across the secondary winding of the transformer. RF is the internal resistance of the diode. RL is the load resistance. Then the instantaneous current I is given by total voltage Vm sin theta divided by total resistance RF plus RL. And in the case of a half wave rectifier, we have derived that the DC current I DC equal to Im divided by pi. But in that case, each diode utilizes only half of the voltage, right? Or you have only 1 diode which conducts, right? In this case, you have 2 diodes which are conducting, so obviously the current is going to be twice as that of a half-wave rectifier. So here IDC is equal to 2 into Im divided by pi. And the DC power output PDC, we know the expression from the previous class. This is I square dc into RL, or in terms of Im, this is 2Im by pi square into RL. And the AC power input PAC equal to I square RMS into RF plus RL. In the case of a full wave rectifier, I RMS equal to Im divided by root 2, whereas in the case of half wave rectifier, we have seen that I RMS equal to Im divided by 2. I'm not going to get into the details of this derivation. If you want to know this, you can refer to the textbook. Okay. So in terms of Im, I can rewrite PAC as Im divided by root 2 whole square into RF plus RL. And the efficiency eta is defined as DC power output PDC divided by AC power input PAC. So this is 2Im by pi whole square RL divided by Im by root 2 whole square RF plus RL. So you can simplify this as 0.812 RL divided by RF plus RL, or if you take RL to the denominator, you get eta equal to 0.812 divided by 1 plus RF plus RL. And what is the maximum efficiency? So you get maximum efficiency when RF is negligible compared to RL. So then the denominator is 1. So maximum efficiency eta max equal to 0.812, or in terms of percentage 81.2 percentage, which means during full wave rectification a maximum of 81.2 percentage of AC power is converted into DC. If you recollect, the maximum efficiency of a half wave rectifier was 40.6 percentage. So a full wave rectifier is twice as efficient as a half wave rectifier. Another important parameter which characterizes the rectification is ripple factor, because if you look at the output of a half wave rectifier or a full wave rectifier, this is not a clean DC, right? Even though the direction is same, the amplitude keeps changing, which means there is an AC component in addition to a DC component, and the AC component is known as the ripple component. And AC component is undesirable because you expect a clean DC coming out of any rectifier circuit, right? So this is undesirable and accounts for the pulsation in the output. So smaller the ripple, more effective is the rectification. So you can quantify ripple in terms of ripple factor as the ratio of RMS value of the AC component to the DC component, or in terms of current, this is IAC divided by IDC. Since the output current has both AC and DC components, the effective RMS value of the total output current is given by I RMS equal to square root of IDC square plus IAC square. Remember, RMS stands for root mean square. Okay. So from this expression, I can write IAC as square root of I RMS square minus IDC square. So IAC divided by IDC equal to square root of I RMS square minus IDC square divided by IDC, or you can take IDC inside the square root. So this is going to be square root of I RMS square by IDC square minus IDC square by IDC square. So the ripple factor IAC by IDC equal to square root of I RMS by IDC whole square minus 1. So this is the general formula. Let's now specifically derive the expressions for a half wave rectifier and a full wave rectifier. So now we know that for a half wave rectifier, I RMS equal to Im by 2, where Im is the maximum current, and IDC equal to Im divided by pi. Now substitute in this equation, you get ripple factor as square root of Im by 2 divided by Im by pi whole square minus 1, which is equal to 1.21. So this is greater than 1, which means the numerator is greater than the denominator. So numerator is the AC component. So AC component is greater than DC component. And this is not a favorable condition, because for a rectifier, you want the AC component to be as small as possible. So this corresponds to the condition of greater pulsation, which should be avoided. Now in the case of a full wave rectifier, IRMS equal to Im divided by root 2 and IDC equal to 2Im divided by pi. So ripple factor is going to be square root of Im by root 2 divided by 2Im by pi whole square minus 1, which is equal to 0.48. So this factor is less than 1, which means the numerator is smaller than the denominator. So the AC component is less than the DC component, which corresponds to less pulsation. So this is the more favorable condition. So ideally you want the ripple factor to be as small as possible. So these are the two major advantages of a full wave rectifier over a half wave rectifier. First one, efficiency is higher. Second, the ripple factor is lower. Before winding up, let's do a couple of quick problems. First one, a full wave rectifier uses two diodes. The internal resistance of each diode may be assumed constant at 20 ohm. The transformer RMS secondary voltage from the center tap to each end of the secondary is 50 volts and the load resistance is 980 ohm. Find the mean load current and the RMS value of the load current. So RF is given as 20 ohm, the internal resistance. RL is given as 980 ohms. And you are given the RMS value of the secondary voltage. This is 50 volts. So the maximum AC voltage is going to be root 2 multiplied by the RMS value. This is 70.7 volts. So once you have the maximum voltage, you can calculate the maximum current through the circuit. So this is going to be voltage divided by the total resistance, Vm divided by Rf plus RL. Put in the values, you get 70.7 milliampere. So once you calculate the maximum load current, now you can calculate the mean load current, IDC. IDC is 2Im divided by pi. You know this expression. So once again you substitute for Im, you get 2 into 70.7 divided by pi, which is 45 milliampere. This is the mean load current, IDC. And what is the RMS value of the load current for a full wave rectifier? IRMS equal to Im divided by root 2, which is 70.7 divided by root 2, that is 50 milliampere. Now if you compare these two values, IDC and IRMS, why IRMS is greater than IDC? It's simple, because if you look at the previous expression, IRMS has both AC and DC component, whereas IDC has only DC component. That's why IRMS will be always greater than IDC. And when will these two currents be equal? Obviously, when you have no AC component. In other words, when ripple factor is 0, IRMS will be same as IDC. Another problem, in the bridge type circuit shown in this figure, the diodes are assumed to be ideal, meaning internal resistance is 0, so you don't have to bother about RF. Find the DC output voltage, peak inverse voltage and output frequency. Assume primary to secondary turns to be 4. So turn ratio N1 is to N2 is 4 is to 1. So the secondary turn is less than primary turn. So this is a step down transformer. Right? So N1 by N2 equal to 4 by 1, which is 4. And the RMS primary voltage is 230 volts. So the RMS secondary voltage, you know the relation between voltages and number of turns, V2 by V1 equal to N2 by N1. So V2 equal to V1, which is 230 volt into N2 by N1. So this is 57.5 volt. So this is the RMS secondary voltage. Now you can calculate the peak voltage by multiplying RMS value with square root 2. So Vm equal to 81.3 volt. What is the DC output voltage? For that, first you need to calculate the current, DC current. So DC current is 2 Im divided by pi, right? DC current is 2 Im divided by pi. But current Im is voltage Vm divided by RL. Actually, this is RL plus RF because total resistance is sum of load resistance and the diode resistance. Since we are considering ideal diodes, RF is 0. So ID is equal to 2 Vm by pi RL. Plug in the values, you get ID is equal to 0.26 ampere. So once you get the DC current, you can calculate the DC output voltage. So output is across the load resistance. So multiply load current with load resistance, you get the output voltage. So VD is equal to IDC into RL. This is 52 volts. What is the peak inverse voltage? So we have seen that peak inverse voltage is same as the maximum secondary voltage, and Vm, maximum secondary voltage, is 81.3. So that's going to be your peak inverse voltage. And finally, what about the output frequency? We have already discussed that since each complete cycle of the input corresponds to 2 output pulses, the output frequency is twice as that of the input frequency. Input frequency is 50 Hertz, so output frequency is going to be 100 Hertz. So that's about a full wave and half wave rectifier. As I said many times, the output of a rectifier is not a clean DC, so you can remove the AC component from this pulsating DC by using a filter circuit. So in the next class, we will discuss in detail about working of a filter circuit. Stay tuned. Thank you.